the bark does come off, and you can do things like cooking it just a bit.
So you just cook that?
Mm-hmm. But if you soak these pieces of bark, you can see that this,
You take out that.
I don't know, I got a piece of wood in there that you don't want in the paper. But the mulberry tree is a very easy one to take the bark off.
Oh. So you would take that out too, that piece?
Yeah. And, you know, usually you pick pieces that are about as big as your finger or your thumb.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, so it'll be a little bit bigger than this one. But you can see that's very strong fiber.
Isn't this interesting? So this wouldn't be considered the traditional kozo?
It's not the same exact plant. It's called a paper mulberry. It's a different species of the mulberry that they use and call kozo. But it really makes nice paper, and I've made a lot of paper from this tree since we moved here.
Wow, isn't that great?
Yeah.
So Jane, do you do all your beading with a kitchen blender? You don't have a Hollander?
I don't have a Hollander.
Well,
And I've never found the need for it unless, you know, I were going to make lots of paper to sell to other artists or to other people. But, you know, when I'm just making it for my own use, the blender and hand beading works fine. And many of these fibers you cut up yourself work better with the Japanese way and the hand beading. You know, kozo is such a long fiber that you can't beat it in a Hollander without destroying the fibers.
Right.
An alkaline, like a soda ash or lye, which is sodium hydroxide, the same stuff you can unstop your drains with. And it still has a few pieces of wood. That was a piece of wood in it.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the bark. And so you squeeze the water out. And you can see in a workshop where we had, you know, everybody with a beating area, we'd get really nice sounds. It'd be almost like a drumming thing. And you use a wooden hammer or a wooden mallet. I found this one in a garage sale in Connecticut one time when I was visiting on the East Coast. And it's really good because it's all one piece. If, you know, it's attached with a handle, sometimes the handle gets loose and comes off.
It's probably about 100 years old.
Yeah, it's really old and it's just perfect. It's a good weight.
Round either. It's got.
Oh, and it's got a lot of
beading rugs originally.
Might have been for that. And you can also find things like I've used an axe handle, which is really hard wood you can buy in the hardware store or the lumber supply. And you can also use a Louisville slugger if you can find one that's still made out of wood.
That's where I'm from, and it's Louisville.
Louisville, okay.
Pestle? Mortar pestle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's
And, you know, I've got a collection of wooden hammers and beaters. But this is my favorite one. This is the one I always put in the suitcase to carry with me if I'm going for a residency. Because it's a good weight. You know, you don't want something so heavy that it makes your arm overtired. And you can change hands. And every once in a while, you know, you gather up your fibers and turn them over. And then beat it out again like a pancake. And if it hasn't been cooked enough, it won't smash up like this. But this one looks pretty good shape. It doesn't need much beating. And, you know, for mulberry bark and other fibers that you want, you know, to be really smooth, you would beat for a long time. And the Japanese, they cut a log and slice it in half. So you have like a table. And then they carve out a little seat on one end, and ladies sit on each end and beat all day. to beat the pulp.
Oh my gosh.
But this works really well, and you know, you just want a natural surface and a good steady table of some sort. You can beat on, you know, concrete or, you know, stone, but it really hurts your arm after a while.
Yeah.
Is that going to stain?
It does.
You don't mind.
It
It's
does
beautiful.
a little bit.
It's
That's
beautiful.
mostly water there.
This is mulberry.
No, this is willow
Oh,
bark.
willow. And
Yeah.
then you put it in alpine. Is that what you said?
Yeah, you cook it in soda ash or lye, sodium hydroxide. And you can also, in the hardware store, buy lime for gardening, which is another alkaline. And you know, it's a natural occurring substance in the earth. The only problem with it is that it does burn the skin just like an acid would. It's the opposite of an acid. So you do want to wear rubber gloves, but I've cooked it and then washed it all out. And I use like a mesh laundry basket. I'll show you that in a little bit. But I'm just going to beat another handful here, and then we'll see. And you know, you can take a turn beating if you get bored and want to do something different.
How long? When do you know that you've
Pulverize it.
pulverized? Yeah.
You beat it to a pulp. That's where the expression comes
I
from.
love it.
From paper making.
I love it.
Videos online of people beating amate bark in Mexico. So I have some amate paper that I brought back from
That's
Mexico.
what, you know, the tapa is the same thing. It's called amate in Mexico and tapa in the Pacific Islands. And, you know, just like kozo, we've gotten that almost as an English word now. Every paper maker uses that word, but in Korea they call it something else, and you know, whatever language it would have a different name.
Okay.
And that's why in my book I used the scientific name, because everybody everywhere knows that.
That one.
And kozo is actually Brucinetta papyrifera in Latin. You know, the scientific names are in Latin, and it's a universal language. If you talk to a botanist in any country who speaks any language, they will understand, and you can say the Moreche family or the Malvaceae family. So I've learned a lot about plants in doing this, although I, you know, only had basic biology in college. I didn't know that. You don't see any really, you know, chunky pieces in it anymore.
So this will.
Yeah, so this table is convenient. You can even rest your hammer in the hole.
This will come out as dark paper, right?
What?
This is a dark.
It'll
paper.
be kind of a dark brown. It won't be a really dark. Some in the hardware store.
Picture.
And you just have to be careful with it. You know, wear rubber gloves when you use it, and until you wash it out after the cooking. And be sure and dispose of it either down your drain to unstop your drain, or spread it out. You know, some parts of your garden might need more alkaline, and some might need more acid. So, you know, you have to balance it out. The reason papermaking gets a bad name for pollution is over years they keep dumping their alkaline in the same river or the same stream.
So what about okra?
Okra is a hibiscus relative.
Is it?
You know, the flowers look just like hibiscus. They're just white. And I've used okra. You take the stems and peel it off. Inside is kind of, it almost looks like styrofoam inside. Dogbane also looks like that inside. And so you just use the sort of the outer part of the stem, the bast fiber. Juice is a formation.
Okay, okra juice. Yeah.
It has the same property. So that's just pure water. And you can see that it's not really dispersed evenly. Maybe I needed to beat it more. so the paper might be kind of stringy, but that might be nice. And then I have some Formation Aid mixed up in these bottles. And you can buy Formation Aid that's in a powder form now, and even the Japanese are using this powder form of Formation Aid instead of stuff
Is that
from the
nary?
plant. What?
Chemical nary?
Yeah.
Is that a formation?
Yeah, it's polyethylene oxide. That's Formation Aid.
Is that the nary?
Yeah, that's what they use now. But originally the neri would be from the root of a certain kind of hibiscus plant.
Yes.
It's Hibiscus maniot, M-A-N-I-H-O-U-T, I think. And when I was in Japan at the Minawashi Museum, they had some of that plant growing outside, and they used the roots of that hibiscus plant. And you can soak a piece of that root in a tub of water overnight and just get tons of formation.
Wow, that is amazing.
And then okra.
What was the word you said?
It's neri, chemical neri they call it. And
Neri is the
N-E-R-I.
Japanese word for Formation Aid.
N-A-R-I.
I think it's
and I
something
get
that-
it at
maybe the same as paste.
I
in
get
your
it at
language.
Hiromi Paper in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've heard of that place.
Yeah.
Are you a paper maker?
You are? She does some
tell you,
paper
I'm
making.
gonna, yeah.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I missed the intro,
All
sorry.
right, so this is Formation Aid. And if
Is that what
the
you
liquid
showed us? No, this
has
is
the slimy quality, it will make a continuous string. It's not the same as aloe, because it won't do that. I think it's what they use in Nickelodeon for green slime.
Ooh, look at
It's
that.
if they dye it green. It's really
Oh wow, look at that.
Strange stuff.
And you can get the same kind of property from okra juice. You can just buy some okra in the market because okra is a relative of hibiscus.
And so okra could be used as the formation as well as the cooking? Okay.
No, it can make paper, the bark of it, or the outer
Yes.
stems. But if you cook okra pods, you know, like you were going to use in your soup or gumbo or something, and you can just strain out the juice. It makes green Formation Aid. I used okra Formation Aid when I was in Brazil because they had a lot of okra in the market.
Wow,
And it was
isn't
fun
that
to
amazing?
use a natural.
It's a mucilage.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there are other plants that have this property. Some tree bark, you'll see, has that same property. And what the Formation Aid does, three things. It makes it more evenly dispersed and suspended in the water. And it also makes it drain more slowly. And it really actually changes the sound of the water.
Can you just buy that formation
Yeah,
stuff?
I'll show you the powder looks like.
What about methyl cellulose? I see you have some there.
It's used for glue
Yeah,
and
glue.
sizing,
Yeah.
not for Formation Aid. This is Formation Aid powder.
And you can just buy, the
You can
pollen.
just buy a little bag of it from the carriage house or other paper making suppliers.
And it sounds like you make the gel and then you use
Yeah,
that rather than adding.
I put it, they'll send you a little paper bag with it. Formation Aid. Polyethylene oxide is the chemical name for it. And it's
that
just the
water
synthetic. And I mix it up in the blender with a
Oh.
little bit of water. And I think I have that one really thick. I should probably not have it quite that thick. I can add a little water to be easier. And the other thing I use that's different for this method of paper making this is non-woven interfacing. This
Yeah,
is
you talked
smooth
about that.
interfacing fabric. You can buy Joanne fabric or any fabric store. You just get it wet, smooth it out.
Did you want us to bring some of that? 'Cause
No, I have a lot of it.
Oh,
And what is
And
that?
you use it over and over again.
What
'cause,
is it
you know,
made of? Probably a
It's
polyester. or something.
polyester, non-woven fabric. And I found them first using this in the Philippines when I went there. And I just thought it was such a good idea. It's cheap, it's smooth, and it dries fast, and you can use it over and over again. And and you can take anything off of this fabric. You know, sometimes it's hard to peel it off a piece of wood or a window glass or something. But, you know, because you can peel the fabric away from it. So, you know, you put this together. This is the paper mold, and this is called the decal. And the mold is what captures the fiber, and the decal controls the edge, and you put them on top. You always use the flat side up. If you put your paper under here, it'd be hard to take it off. So you put it like that, put the decal on top, and then you go in vertically, flatten out, and lift up, and then while it's draining, you kind of rock in this Japanese method. And I learned this in Mino City. Each part of Japan, you know, the paper makers will have a slightly different dance of the paper making process. So I'm going to turn it around because I got more on that side. And the second dip, you go vertically with your rocking so that you're kind of aligning the fibers and interweaving them, first that way and this way. And you can keep going as many times as you want to make it thicker. And, you know, have some patience. It's a slow, gentle kind of thing. In Western paper making, it's usually just one dip and up and out. And so,
Get it over with, huh?
you know, yeah.
That's sad.
And it was very hard for me to learn this after I'd been doing Western paper making, and to slow down and, you know, layer it and move in a gentle rocking, you know, more Zen-like thing. And our teacher was Japanese, of course, and been doing this for, you know, 30 years and didn't speak any English, and all she would do was do it again. And, you know, she didn't have any explanation that we could understand. It was just all learned by watching her.
Wonderful to learn
And
from there.
I thought I was never going to get it, but finally it happened. And so after, I got it on the decal, but anyway, we'll try this one. And I put these marks on the piece of Pellon so you can know how to lay it down. And then you use a sponge on the back of the screen. I think I put too much formation aid, so we got a formation aid glob there. I need to stir
Will
it
that
more.
just dry into
Yeah.
the paper?
It'll be okay. And, you know, we can beat up a little bit more and put more in it. But we'll just dry that, and I dry them on a clothesline. So you put the edge of the cloth over the line so that it holds it well. And you can see we could put more of the small ones on the same piece of interfacing fabric. So we'll have paper all there and all there, and then, you know, I think it's going to get warmer. We can go outside and put clotheslines between the trees and some water. In other places, you know, I've been where it's really warm. I've used warmer water, of course, because it gets warm in the sun. But they think the best paper is made only with cold water. And the quality of your water also will affect the paper. you know, some water has chemicals in it, or might have an acid or a base.
Right.
Green.
So, you know, if you were really careful about making archival paper, you would maybe use distilled water or something.
Mm.
Wow.
But I've used lake water in some places,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, streams. And, you know, I made paper in Lake Tahoe water. It was good. You know, so, you know, I just use water out of the
What
tap.
about ocean water?
Yeah.
It's too
Ocean
salty.
water, I have used that.
It's not too
it
salty.
works.
Wow.
And it might affect the, you know, longevity or archival qualities of your paper, but it's interesting
How
to
funny.
do that. And in most of my work, as you will see from what I'm doing now with the seeds and the letting the paper dissolve, I'm not interested in permanence or making it last forever in one form. I'm making it
Right.
come back in living, blooming flowers.
Oh, I love that.
And so, you know, it just depends on what you want
Right.
your product to be. Do you want it to be pure and archival and not have anything that's going to turn or get holes in it or turn brown or whatever? All right, so anyway, this is Kozo. And when I get it, I've been able to get it from the place in Japan where I was an artist in residence in Nino City. And they send it to you in a shrink-wrapped bag. This is 1 kilo, which is about like 2 pounds. And it's still got a lot of water in it, but they shrink wrap it to make it as you know, dry as possible,
Wow.
but still able to be used without going through all the cooking and the beating and so on.
So, and that's not bleached.
This is bleach,
Yeah. Yeah.
but Kozo is naturally pretty white.
Yeah.
And they take off
is-
all the outer bark, which is what has the darker color in it. You
Yeah.
can see even in this mulberry that, you know, this is the bark without any wood or outer bark. You know, they would take off this, they would scrape all that off. That's the outer bark, and that would give it kind of a brownish tan color. You can see it's not really dark brown, but they would use only the inner leaf fiber, and they have a special tool to scrape off the outer bark. But you know, you could just get a knife and
Isn't
do
that
that.
the outer though?
Like they use this, right? This is the outer.
That's the inner bark.
Oh.
The outer bark has this color, that kind of beigey color.
Oh, I see. I see.
Here's some that is, the bark is
So-
scraped off.
Oh.
So you want that inner bark.
The inner bark is the
Oh.
best, but I usually cook it all and use the outer bark too, because I like the flecks of color in it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, the Japanese want to make it very pure, pristine, you know, just very smooth. So what I do is just, you know, put it in a bucket of water and stir it up for a bit. I think that's plenty in there, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like when you get it. And I can give you the contact for how to order it. It's expensive now because the shipping is very
Yeah,
expensive.
yeah.
If you could go there and get it, it wouldn't be
You
that
have to get it
expensive.
from Japan.
I don't blend it. You don't want to blend the Kozo usually because the blending cuts the fibers, or it would just get tangled around the blades of your blender.
So you don't need a whole lot in there, just a little bit.
No, I didn't put much. I'm going to keep this one really thin so we can use it for top layers and, you know, kind of make a veil to cover everything.
That's
Oh,
nice.
wow.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to put formation aid in it.
You're just very hands-on with all.
Yeah. And you
Kind
kind
of
of
guesstimate there with that
guesstimate
stuff.
because this is very slimy, as you can see.
I
can
guess
do
it's not. I guess it's okay with your skin and hands. And
Yeah,
everything.
it doesn't do anything, and you can't even tell. You know, it's been in there. It's going everywhere.
So stringy.
And that water is very cold.
But the sound changes when you add the
And
formation aid,
it
right?
changes. And my teacher in Japan, she could tell just across the room by listening to us stirring if it needed more formation aid. You know, you can see it's much quieter.
Yeah.
And kozo needs a lot of formation aid usually. It's still not stirred up good enough. And if you get too much formation aid, it'll drain so slowly you'll stand here a long time waiting for it to drain. So there's an optimum amount, and then, if you get too much, you just have to add more water or you stir it more. All right, I'm just gonna, the front of it,
Fibers just
the fiber starts running down.
Okay.
Did that cover it? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's very
that
thin,
is
which is good.
amazing. Can I touch?
Uh-huh. And that was just one
Very
dip.
little.
And usually what you do, you make several dips. That was just one dip. That's probably a piece of willow.
I mean,
And
you
you
can
can
really.
keep doing as many dips as you want. And it's a very pleasant, peaceful sort of rocking. And the sounds are very pleasant. I used to have a studio in New York, and it was in a kind of like a garage, and it had holes in the roof, and birds used to get in there. And a bird used to come out and tweet because it loved the sound of the water. It stayed all winter in that
Did you try to
studio.
bathe in it?
They
Pretty
just thought the
cold.
water sounds, the sloshing and the
Isn't that
dripping
fun?
was fun. And so it
That's
was
great.
neat to have a bird in your studio. Some kind of house wren, I guess, or something. And so each time you go in and do more layering, you're making the paper stronger and thicker, of course. And you can see it's still very thin, but it will be a sheet of paper. And I'm just going to take this one down and put it on the same one so we can have it as a sample. And the Japanese, they do things like have a metal heated table or a heated metal wall,
Oh, really?
and then put it on there and it'll dry in about 10 minutes.
I can use my print dryer for that.
Yeah, that would probably work.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
I have a print dryer
A
for drying
print
photographs.
dryer.
I could just lay it on top of that.
Yeah. How much do those cost?
Oh, I don't know. Probably next to nothing these days.
Yeah,
Because
maybe.
hardly
Nobody
anybody has a dark room
Does
anymore.
that anymore?
I would find one on Craigslist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that is really. That is so.
Mhm.
Oh, that's very cool.
Very delicate.
Yeah,
And
so
you could
delicate.
probably print on that. And,
Wow.
there are other ways of drying it if you want it three-dimensional. I think Joyce is interested in the three-dimensional.
There,
I am
And,
too, actually.
After you pressed it a bit, a lot of them have wet strength that you can lift it up when it's wet. And then put it on something to dry. I didn't get it very well, but, we could put it on the refrigerator. That's
would you-
incredibly thin.
would you put that directly on a piece that you want to make a sculpture of?
Yeah.
That thin like that? Ooh,
Yeah.
that wet?
And maybe you would dry it
great.
more.
Dry it
I'll
a
show you
little
how to
bit,
dry it
maybe,
more.
because it's coming apart.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We might forget about that one. It's
Yeah,
so
that one will be there
Yeah.
probably forever. It's so, you still get a little bit of, that's why they call it the deco edge, because a little fiber seeps under there.
Which I love.
I like that. And we pay a lot of money if we get deco edge paper when you buy it. There are ways you can fake the decal, but usually it would mean it was formed one sheet at a time. But now you can take a paintbrush and paint a line of water and then tear it, and it'll make a fake decollage. And we do that a lot. But this is not quite 8.5 by 11. I think it's 8 by 10 instead of 8 by 11, 8.5 by 11. But it's a nice size.
I love this.
And you can make.
Are those plum twigs? Plum?
I think so.
Yeah, I love plum twigs.
Yeah.
That is just so cool.
You
I just
could
keep looking at
collect,
great
different
sculpture.
twigs that you like, the color of them, the bark.
Oh,
This
gosh,
is an envelope decal that you can buy from paper making suppliers, and they made it out of this.
an envelope.
So you can make
Decal.
handmade
You're making-
envelopes.
Yeah,
I
you can
don't-
make your
I don't
homemade envelopes
see
to go
it.
with your handmade
I don't
videos,
either.
especially.
Because you're gonna fold it.
This way,
Yeah.
and
No, this
then
way.
this is the flap.
No, this is the envelope shape. You fold this and you fold that.
Oh,
Okay, yeah. I
And
guess.
you can do things, we do decals, like, that would just make
Little
two
double.
pieces in one dip kind of thing.
That's cute.
And
a twofer.
and you can see the duct tape's good.
Oh, okay.
Kind of, covers up those staples and so on. And, so, and you can see, this is a cute little one. Very tiny. I got that in Taiwan.
That
Very
is cute.
And you can make little tiny squares.
True.
I
The
might try to
paper.
work with that. Do you have just one of those? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or do you have some other
And,
little ones?
This is one for making your business cards.
Oh, wow.
Oh, what a great idea.
Mhm.
I love it. It's so much more fun than having them
Yeah.
printed
I
somewhere.
know, it's true.
Oh, that's perfect.
Oh, that's great.
Business
Did you make
cards.
that one, or did
No, a student in Taiwan, there's his Chinese name and his English name was Tony. He made it in 2004 when I was first going
really
around in
cute.
Taiwan. He was really good at woodworking, and he said, I can make that. I will go make one.
Isn't that fun?
And then, we were all talking about how nice it would be to have handmade business cards, handmade paper business cards. So
And he went for it.
he did.
So, that's
Mhm.
so perfect.
And it's
Oh, I
so-
love
it, you
Can I have
you
100 of those?
Yeah.
200?
It would cost you a fortune. But if you
Nobody
make it
even knows that
yourself.
anymore.
They don't.
So there are different sizes. And this is really coarse screening. This is another kind of screening you can use, which is brass
Mm.
or
And
copper.
why would you
or,
use that?
it doesn't affect the paper and the water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it would
It's a
just have a
little bigger.
coarser. It's just a slightly different shape.
Mhm.
And then other things you can do are, use this stick-on decal material.
Oh.
It's called buttercut, and I have some pieces of it here
I've
that
heard of that.
somebody can play with. And you just draw your design on here, cut it out.
Like linoleum?
It's sort of,
It's like a stencil.
it's a stencil material.
Yeah.
It's called buttercut. You can order it from Carriage House or any of the paper,
Buttercut. Buttercut.
because it cuts like butter, and it has a sticky backing on it, just
Oh.
like contact paper. So you just peel that off, and then
then
stick
stick
it
it on
to your
your-
screen.
I would just want a little teeny tiny one like that. I want this cone. want
How
a
did I
little
find those
cone.
branches? A whole different view.
Yeah.
And I have another piece that hangs from the ceiling that's like, sort of like that. And, I made the edges very uneven and roughly, and, so that,
That'd be beautiful. Just a whole. I want to make a whole hanging one, just that falls.
yeah, all
You know,
flowing.
You had a bunch of those
Yeah,
at your other studio.
yeah, I
Do you
did.
still have them?
Yeah, they're folded up. Right here in this bucket, I have some pieces of abaca that's been soaking overnight.
Okay.
And it comes from.
This is what
Sorry.
the
Ah.
looks like when you buy it from the
Oh.
premium
Premium
Abaca.
Abaca.
That's premium, huh?
It's
I've
a
never
little
seen
lighter.
this.
Wow.
And the first,
Thick.
it's very thick. It's kind of like cardboard. And they
It
send you
is.
this in a box in the mail.
From the
And
Philippines.
Well, Carriage House orders
Oh.
it by 500 pounds or something. This
Carriage
is
House
about
has it.
a half a pound of it. And as soon as you get this wet, it starts to disintegrate. It doesn't have anything else except the beaten fibers.
Oh, that's nice.
And so, once you wet it, you can tear it up, put it in the bucket.
Wow.
And, so,
That's really different.
and if you like to use, recycled paper, like you mentioned your old music scores, or you have some old maps, I've used those a lot, or, some other
Old
drawings, old watercolor paintings or something.
Mm-hmm.
If it's good paper and doesn't have any coating, like a plastic-like coating on it, and the ink is not too objectionable, then you can just, put it in with it. But, when we buy recycled paper, it's not 100% recycled. It's at most 80% and 20% new fiber. So even if you use your old music scores, you want to put a little bit of Abaca, probably. It's the most readily available, and it's a very strong fiber.
A friend of mine wanted to give me egg cartons. The old, you know that? Are those
Those are usually made from pine trees,
really?
bark.
I should have taken.
But it's
Have you ever done
not
it?
really
That-
beautiful.
It's that ugly gray.
Ugly
That's what,
Some of them are
gray.
green, sort of,
And
like
it's
maybe
very short
containers.
fibers.
Green.
I haven't seen
It would be
that.
good maybe for some very sculptural things, where you wanted it to be thick and lumpy and, that kind of thing. But if you're trying to make smooth paper that you can draw or paint on, no. But
Yeah.
for sculpture, I would think. And I know one artist in Louisiana, she only used newspapers, and she only used the classified ads because she liked the color it made. It just made the most incredible kind of grayish
Oh.
color. And she pulped all that up and, put it on old farm implements. And, that became the kind of like the skin of the sculptures, the paper pulp. So, there are all sorts of ways you could use
Wow.
newspapers, egg cartons, old cardboard boxes. If you probably would have to make some kind of bigger beater than a blender. But anyway, I'll show you the blender.
But when you're using the Abaca like this, you still have to blend it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you start going around to different countries, they have all kinds of blenders, but I've found the Osterizer is the best. And you want one that has ice crush.
Uh-huh.
I found one on Amazon for $41. I've been looking in Goodwill and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to find.
Kind
The
of
good
hard
ones
to
people
get
don't
a
want to
good
give
one.
away.
It's if it'll crush ice, you can be pretty sure it's strong enough to make paper pulp. But you can also use those real expensive ones like a Vitamix or something, but they don't really do any better. And you're paying a lot of money
A lot of money.
for that.
Mm-hmm.
But these you can get at Target usually for about $30 or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Osterizer with ice
As long
crush.
as it
Just
has
be
the
sure it has
Okay.
ice crush speed, and then it's usually pretty good. All right, so that pulp hasn't even soaked very much, but it'll be okay. And you just put a handful in there. You fill your blender almost to the top. And I like to get a plastic container because the glass ones are really heavy. And if you're doing this a lot and lifting it, it gets your arm tired.
That's
And
good to know.
you know, they'll also break. You can see this one broke. I dropped it on the floor one time, but I duct taped it back together. I usually just count to 30, but you can blend it more if you want really smooth paper that you could print on or, you know, draw or write on. And if you want it chunky, you know, like if you wanted some of your music score to show in there, you wouldn't blend it very much at all, you know, because you wanted some of those chunks to stay in it. And you can kind of go by the sound. If you have too much pulp in there, it'll start going, and then you know you need to take out some of the pulp and put more water. And you every once in a while feel of your blender if it's getting overheated, then you give it a rest a while. But you know, I've had this one for years. I just got a new one I haven't even used yet. I brought it out and thought we might initiate it. But they last, you know, a long time, and eventually, you know, the seal will start breaking down. But one reason I like this blender is it doesn't have any exposed electrical parts. Some blenders I saw in other countries, you know, you'd take it off and you could just see down into the motor or something. And you thought, wow, that doesn't look very safe. And so I started even bringing my blender in my suitcase.
Oh.
It's easy enough to bring. And then you have to worry about adapters to plug it in.
Right.
So, and you know, you can usually. I was going to tell you alternatives to blenders that paper makers do. I used to do this when I was a teacher in the schools. This is just disintegrated here. It's been sitting there for so long and gotten wet. But this is a paint stirring attachment.
Oh.
This is mixing.
Mixing. They use it
Glazes
sometimes
with
for
that.
mixes. Yeah, glaze mixers, concrete mixers. You can find it in Home Depot and sometimes in paint stores. And it fits onto an electric drill. And I used to have a garbage can that rolled around,
So if you're making big
and I made a
batches.
big quantity of enough for a whole classroom with this
Oh.
paint stirring attachment.
In a
Wow.
A garbage can, yeah, plastic garbage can.
garbage.
And then I made a 2x4 that fit across the top that had a hole in it that, you know, would keep the drill held up out of the, so you didn't have to stand there and hold it.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it was very, and you could roll it around.
How long would you need to beat it with something like that?
You have to beat it a little longer, maybe 10 minutes or so. You know, depending again on how smooth you
How
wanted it to
clever.
be. But you know, some people made beaters out of an outboard motor or a kitchen disposal. You know, there's formation aid in it. We'll see. There's one layer, and if it doesn't run down, then it's got enough formation aid in it. And the second layer is harder, and if you put it in like that, it's going to knock that off.
Yes.
So you got to put it in so that the water only hits the top of the strainer.
Does it need to sit for a while for the formation to get really mixed in, or you can do it right away?
Yeah, you can do it later. And then, you know, the layering, you know, with back and forth. The second and third dips don't have to be as deep. And that's pretty thick. And anytime you don't like what you've done, you know, maybe it had a hole in it or something. Because you put your finger in it. Then you can just kiss it off.
Yeah. Kiss it off. So this,
Smack. And don't push it all the way in. You don't want to get pulp on the back of the screen. And then screw it back in.
and this came from the sheets that were blended, I think, right? Yeah, you put it in
Yeah, this is all abaca. This is 100% kozo. This is 100% abaca. And that's mixed willow and other fibers. And then the blue one is blue jay.
You make it look so easy, Jane.
It is. After you've been doing it so long, everybody gets their own little way. Some people
Really
go this
limber
way.
wrists.
Yeah, I
You're
know. It's just gonna
It's,
like you
you
do
know,
it towards you.
loosening up your
Shoulders and
shoulders, and
wrists.
it gets really hard on the back if this
Yeah.
is bigger. And you know, the biggest one I have is, you know, 12 by 18 or something, and it gets really heavy. It lifts that up.
12 by 18 inches.
hmm
Does that even fit in there?
No, I have a bigger
You have to
12
do
out in the
bigger
back.
12.
One time I tried to do it in a kid's swimming pool, and I had a big screen that I'd made, and it was just like, I finally had to get 2 people to do it together.
Yeah, you would.
And coordinate, you know, the movements. It was quite, now that's the way you do it as a group.
Yeah.
And we made big sheets, and we could do that in a workshop, you know.
That'd be fun.